Get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Check out the show notes for your promo code to get started podcasting today.
When I'm doing estate planning for my clients, I typically tell them do not leave your retirement plan as an asset of your trust.
Okay.
There are significant tax consequences when we do that. And the reason is because like anyone getting a early retirement benefit, the government will tax you on that. So you're receiving a benefit. The government says if you put money in a 401k, a 403b, if you're a teacher or some sort of government employee, any sort of IRA, then we won't tax you on those dollars.
Welcome to the Unlocking the Club podcast, where we host honest and direct conversations about journeys of access, personal truth, and reclaiming space. We share our truth so that you can find the key to own your truth, honor your journey, and reclaim your space. Grab your keys, your wallet, your phone, and invite your friends to meet you at the club. Here's your host, Angela Taylor.
Welcome to a very, very special series of Unlocking the Club, where we explore one of the most important yet often overlooked conversations that we can have. A conversation about estate planning and elder care. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, and over the past few years, my family, my friends, we've learned the hard way about the critical importance of having a will or a trust in place. When unexpected moments arise, not having a plan can leave families vulnerable. And I've seen firsthand how it can create chaos during already challenging times. Recently, I conducted a poll, and the results were startling. 80% of the people that I polled between the ages of 20 and 65 don't have a will or a trust in place. Even more striking is that most of those who do take action, it's only after experiencing a tragic event in their family. National data suggests and supports this as well, with studies showing that a significant majority of adults, particularly between and within the Black and BIPOC communities, have not taken steps to secure their legacies. And when we fail to plan, we leave our families with legal battles, financial burdens, and emotional stress that can take years to untangle. That's why here at Unlocking the Club, we're dedicating an entire 12-part series to unlocking the essentials of estate planning, with bonus episodes focused on adjacent topics. Together with two brilliant minds, Shane Jasmine Young from Young Law Group and Verleana Green-Telusca from VDG Law Group, we'll break down what you need to know about protecting your assets, building a legacy, and making sure your loved ones are cared for when it matters the most. Our goal in this series is to equip you with the knowledge and the tools to take action now before life forces you to. Whether you're just starting out or navigating the complexities of caring for aging loved ones, these conversations will give you the clarity and the confidence to plan for your future. So grab your notebooks, tune in, and let's unlock this critical conversation together. Welcome to Unlocking the Club's special series on estate planning and elder care. Welcome back to another episode of Unlocking the Club. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, and we'd like to welcome to our 12-part series on estate planning and elder care. In today's episode, we're going to talk about estate and inheritance taxes. We're going to try to demystify them a little bit. Estate and inheritance taxes, they're terms that can make anyone nervous, but understanding them is crucial to ensuring that your estate planning doesn't leave your beneficiaries with unexpected burdens. So today we'll break down what these taxes are, how they work, and what you can do to minimize or even avoid them. Joining us today to discuss estate and inheritance taxes is Verleana Green-Telusca of VDG Law Group. Hey, Verleana, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me, Angela.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I want to jump right in because I am curious about these estate taxes. What exactly are estate and inheritance taxes, and how do they differ from one another, if at all?
So estate and inheritance taxes is a term people just generally use to say, will I be taxed on anything that I receive? Or the deceased person, will they be taxed or their estate taxed on anything that they leave to their beneficiaries, heirs, loved ones, or organizations that receive their assets when they pass away. And generally speaking, most people won't pay any sort of inheritance or gift tax. And the reason is because we have certain laws that tell us how much your estate is going to be taxed when you pass away.
Okay.
And that amount is, quite honestly, astronomical. And only 1% of the population will have a tax on their estate when they pass away.
Really? Okay. Now I'm exhaling already just listening to that, because there's something is like, I may not have that much, but they're going to tax the heck out of it. So, like, when should we be concerned about estate taxes, and what is that threshold? Is it state by state, or, what's the criteria that we should be concerned?
It is not state by state. There are state taxes that are due if you have, for example, an IRS or a federal tax liability. So that's the rule for California. And every state is going to differ. I can tell you with the IRS, we had something called the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And that was passed during the then President Trump's administration, which took the exemption amount from 5.6 million. So when you had President Obama, who was in office, you had laws that said if you have $5.6 million or more, anything above and beyond that amount will be taxed at the highest tax rate.
Okay.
I think about 38%, right?
Okay.
Once the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, that number went to $11.18 million. So that's the 1%, the 1%ers. And it doubles if you're a married couple. So you get to shelter as of 2017, it was $22.4 million per family that could be passed on from one generation to the next without being taxed. And because of tax laws, it adjusted for inflation every year. So in 2023, that number is $12.92 million. So if you died in 2023, you could leave almost $13 million to your family members. In 2025, that number excels to $13.99 million per person. And then the government will come after taxes. You double that amount, and then it's, 13.99 times 2. So almost $18 million that you can, I'm sorry, not 18.
28, yeah, 28 million.
$28 million that you can pass from one generation to the next without your estate being taxed. Now, if Congress doesn't act in 2025, so that's why we talk about elections and why they're so important and they're key, because if Congress doesn't act and we still have this 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act law in place, it will revert back to $7 million in 2026. So it'll go back to what President Obama administration put in place. So really going to depend on who's in place, what Congress does, if they pass another Tax and Jobs Cut Act, or if they pass another act that's going to impact the estate and gift tax, we'll see whether or not they want the 1%ers or the middle class to start paying taxes on some of the funds that is transferred from one generation to the next.
Okay. So if you are not currently in that threshold, let's say from 6 to 28 million, if you're filing jointly, should you not worry about estate taxes as well? Or
you should not worry about estate taxes, really, because your estate will not be taxed. So there are other taxes that come with someone passing away.
Okay.
So when I talk to my clients about tax planning, it's not just saying that, okay, we don't have to worry about paying the IRS. And here in California, if you don't owe the IRS, you don't owe the state of California.
Okay.
If you owe the IRS, you owe the state of California. That's what the rule in California is. So we're not really concerned about the tax from leaving an estate. We're not concerned with that. We're concerned about property taxes.
Hmm.
That's what we're concerned about, particularly here in California. And we're also concerned about capital gains tax if we sell a capital asset like the family home. What does that look like? How do we plan for it? Because most estates will not be taxed.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about that. Imagine IRAs or 401ks. Like, right, there might be something about when they're passed on to beneficiaries. Is there some tax implications, and what should we plan to do, whether we are thinking about whether we're a beneficiary or we're the benefactor? And then when we talk about taxes for your property or the capital gains, like what are some things, some strategies that you encourage your clients to put in place around estate planning?
Those are good questions. So let me address those questions one by one. And the first one is when we're planning for it, when we're leaving our retirement, our IRAs, our 401ks to beneficiaries, should we leave it in a trust? Should we leave it to beneficiaries? How many beneficiaries should I leave it to? What does that look like? When I'm doing estate planning for my clients, I typically tell them, do not leave your retirement plan as an asset of your trust.
Okay.
There are significant tax consequences when we do that. And the reason is because like anyone getting a early retirement benefit, the government will tax you on that. So you're receiving a benefit. The government says if you put money in a 401k, a 403b, if you're a teacher or some sort of government employee, any sort of IRA, then we won't tax you on those dollars. You're getting a tax credit for that. Now, when you take it out, if you take it out particularly early, the government typically is going to tax you about 20%.
Okay.
Right? So we have to remember that our beneficiaries are inheriting those rules. So if you give it to Living Trust and you say, when I pass away, my 401k will go to my Living Trust, then that Living Trust will receive a tax bill, or those beneficiaries who are receiving a benefit out of that Living Trust. So you have to be careful. And we tell our clients, most estate planners will tell you, do not leave your 401k or your retirement plan in your Living Trust unless there are special circumstances. And some of the special circumstances are you have children who are under the age of 18 and you're not married. Then you kind of have to, right? And take that tax hit, right? Because you don't want your children to have to deal with going to court, someone filing up for a guardianship, and then placing those assets in what we call a Uniform Transfer to Minors Act account, them receiving a lump sum of money at 18 or 25. Now, if you have grown people who will be beneficiaries of that retirement account, just name them as beneficiaries. Say, I want these individuals to be beneficiaries of this particular retirement account. They will receive that retirement account, roll it over into their own retirement account.
Okay.
And then they'll be able to take it out at 65, 70, and then they won't get as many penalties as you would if you just left it to a Living Trust. Another strategy that some of my clients have, particularly if they have charitable giving, if they want to give something to charity, then you can leave that 401k or that retirement plan to your favorite organization, your favorite 501c3 tax exempt organization, and then there's no tax to them. So that's another strategy if you're thinking about, you know what, I want to leave some money to this particular organization. I have several assets. Leave your family members the cash, the house, and put it in a trust. Leave your favorite organizations your retirement accounts.
Mm, interesting. So some charitable giving, naming beneficiaries for your retirement plans. Are there any other strategies that we should contemplate when we're trying to figure out how we can reduce our tax bill, if you will?
Everybody wants to do that. I have a master's of law and tax, and everybody asks me, how can I not pay taxes? If I had a magic wand where we could just say, you know what, people will not pay taxes. I mean, if you have a spouse, there's certain things like slats where you can leave your funds to and your spouse, and you can shelter it that way if you're over the threshold amount. But in terms of other strategies, like I said, you would have to give some to charity if you're over that particular amount. You don't want to leave your retirement accounts because to a trust. You want to leave them to individuals, but it's hard because there are not, a bunch of ways where you can say, you know what, I'm going to get out paying my fair share. A lot of people try to say that they can create these special ways where you don't have to pay taxes. We can tell you what not to do. There's things that people do, like, for example, put property in joint tenancy. That can create a tax issue once your family decides to sell that property that's held in joint tenancy, because you're paying more capital gains taxes when that property is sold. In California, we had an old rule, Prop 13, which said that you could pass a property from a parent to a child and not incur a reassessment for property tax purposes. That law changed in 2021, so we no longer have that special law. So the child has to live in the property, and they have to file certain documents within 1 year of date of death for those property taxes to stay the same. So there are strategies that we think about to say, how can I reduce my taxes in terms of property taxes or my capital gains taxes? And those are some techniques. One, don't leave your property in joint tenancy. Leave it in a trust. Because once that property is sold, you don't get the benefit of what we call a step up in basis. And if you want me to explain what a step up in basis is, I can do that in just a little bit. But
Okay.
People who hold property in joint tenancy don't get a step up in basis for capital gains purposes with the IRS. And then the other thing is, if you're in California and you want to leave a property to a child, make sure that child understands that they have to live in the property, or else their taxes will go up if they inherit that property and they rent it out. So those are just a couple of strategies that families can do to reduce their taxes, or so their taxes don't go up.
Okay. So this step up in basis, what exactly is that?
And it's a step up in basis means that our basis, it's stepped up. So for example, I buy a property in 1990. I buy it for $100,000 in 1990. And in California, we know property, it substantially increases in values year over year. So 1990, $100,000. In 2024, that property may be valued at $1 million, right? So what happens is when someone passes away, the basis steps up. So if I sold the property, I die, instead of for capital gains purposes, the government saying you owe taxes on the difference between $100,000 and the $1 million that it sells for. The basis is stepped up, and the government says you only owe us money, but the difference between the $1 million and whatever it sells for, let's say it sells for $1.1 million. So those taxes are only based on $100,000 versus based on $1 million. And it's
It's a big
significant.
deal. It's a big deal.
Oh, it's a big deal. When you're paying taxes on $100,000 versus $1 million,
Yeah. That's why this is important. That's why this is important.
So that's why when people say, you know what, I'm my child, if something happens, they're joint tenancy, they're on title to my property. I just go like that. Like, no, don't do that. You can keep it in your name, create a living trust. It operates in some of the same significant ways to say if something happens, this property is going to this particular person. And we're making sure we get the benefits of what we call that step up in basis. So if our family decides to sell that property, they're not paying a whole bunch of money to the IRS in what we call capital gains tax.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for taking the time to walk us down that road. I had not heard that term. So I'm glad that you were able to share that with us. And things that I'm hearing from you in this conversation, kind of just demystifying inheritance or estate taxes. One is, something really simple that we can all do, whether you have insurance policies, some of your benefits packages or 401k packages in your workplace, make sure you have designated your beneficiaries. And if it's outdated, update those beneficiaries.
Absolutely. And Angela, people think that estate planning is just developing your trust and, those documents that I went over in our other segment, but it's really having those beneficiary designations updated as well. You want to go to your job and say, okay, if I have an accidental death benefit, if I have a life insurance policy, I've had people who've come to me and said, you know what? My parents' ex-spouse is the beneficiary. They're the beneficiary on that policy. They get the money.
Yeah.
They didn't change it.
Yeah.
Right? So whoever is named, even if the deceased person was mad at them, hadn't spoke to them in 20 years, they're getting that benefit. So we have to keep in mind that estate planning is also making sure that our benefit designations, our beneficiary designations are updated. And we're looking at that when major life events happen. We have births, we have deaths, we have, people who we care about that enter into our lives or exit out of our lives. Let's update those benefits because that is a part of estate planning. And that's also something that we do when we are creating an estate plan for our clients at VDG Law. We make sure that their beneficiaries are updated, that if they want to leave something in their trust to cover potential expenses, some people do. They want to leave, for example, a life insurance policy, and they want to leave that in their trust because they have minor children. They can name the trust as the beneficiary. And that life insurance policy goes into the trust, but they have to update the beneficiary on the life insurance policy to say family trust.
Yeah. Okay. Now, and I remember early on in my career, like my first couple of jobs, and you're filling out all this paperwork. It's overwhelming. And so you get to that part and you really just put names down. Like I know for myself, I wasn't really thinking it through, but it does matter. Right. And there's some of those policies as I'm listening to you now, Verleana, I'm like, I need to go back to some of these policies 20, 25 years ago that I know are still out there that I don't even know what names I put down. So it feels trivial in the moment, but it's really important that you are on a regular basis updating that for sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I've learned so much about taxes, inheritance taxes, and estate taxes, and that threshold that I don't think I wasn't going to have to worry about that $7 million, $13 million threshold at all, but also just how important it is to be thoughtful around the beneficiaries that you name, whether it's an insurance policy or your retirement policies. The property taxes, I hear so often as families haven't planned for the future of their family home and it's still in the name of the person who owned the property, and property taxes aren't being paid. And 7, 10 years down the line, it's up for auction, or some developer is paying the taxes, and now all of a sudden they own your family property. So there's some subtle little things that are so important that we do. What else, when we talk about taxes, would you want to demystify?
Just making sure that people understand that no, you're likely not going to pay taxes. And if you are someone like Prince or Aretha Franklin, and you have significant assets as they did, make sure that your family is planning in a way that makes sense and that you're thinking about charitable giving. That is so important. If you don't plan and you have significant assets like Prince did, the government comes in and they take that 38% and they do with it what they want to do with it, versus Prince saying, you know what, I love these particular organizations. I want to make sure that I fund those organizations and that they have money for the future. If you have significant assets like that, make sure you have an estate plan. You don't want to have your family going through probate court and the government taking that 38% and doing with it what they want to do with it, versus you leaving a legacy to the people that you care about, the organizations that you care about, them receiving the benefits on a tax-free basis.
Mic drop right there. We can wrap up this episode, because there's no better way to demystify and make sure that we protect ourselves from unnecessary tax implications by, again, being prepared, whether it is with your beneficiaries, whether it is taking care of those property taxes, setting up an estate plan, having a trust, right, or charitable giving. So, Verleana, thank you once again for being able to give us the insight and the perspective about something, again, that I had a lot of confusion around, the tax situation when we take a look at our assets in our state and plan for our legacy and our future. So thanks once again for joining us here on Unlocking the Club.
Yes, and I just want to put a plug in. If you need assistance with estate or tax planning, please do contact our office at vdglaw.com. That is our website, and our phone number, 510-479-0768.
Listen to the lady right there. Check them out. Like we can't do this alone. Verleana has years and years of experience doing this work with a lot of people. And you can just hear in the conversations that we've been having with her how much she cares for her clients. And so encourage you to go to VDG Law and get some assistance and start planning for your future. That is it for another piece of our 12-part series on Unlocking the Club and its estate planning and elder care special. I'm your host, Angela Taylor. Thank you so much for listening in. Make sure you share this information in these episodes with your friends and family. And let's make this a movement. Let's make sure that all of us are protected and that we're protecting our assets for the future. Well, that's it for Unlocking the Club. Again, I'm your host, Angela Taylor. Until next time, be well.
Thanks for listening to Unlocking the Club. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite streaming platform so that you can experience every episode. And follow us on social media, where you'll hear about future guests, access special features, and connect with this amazing community. Head on over there and let us know how you are unlocking the club. Until next time, peace.